Welcome. I'm John Pagan, your speaker for the Pennsylvania Medical Society House of Delegates. Tonight is our third training webinar. You may have participated in some before. There are people coming in right now, I see, so we're going to get ready with just a short review, instructional video, and then we'll go through some additional slides and some exercises tonight, which I'm actually pretty excited about. So as everyone enters, get ready for that. You will note and you'll be instructed on some of the features on this platform, which include at the bottom of your screen a Q&A button. That will be the main utility for making motions, extractions, referrals, and you'll also put an accompanying reason with that. If you have a desperate problem, you can raise your hand and be identified that way. So we'll start now with our instructional video, and then I'll go over some preliminaries on how this house is the same and different from other houses of delegates. So first I'll give it to Chris Hartman and the intro video.
Hello, and welcome to the Pennsylvania Medical Society House of Delegates Zoom training. As a delegate, you will be entering into a Zoom webinar with the ability to type a question or comment in the Q&A section, raise your hand to be recognized, speak when called upon to speak, and cast a vote for a resolution or other House business. Before reviewing these important Zoom functions, I would first like to review the audio settings. This is an essential step in making sure that you have the best overall experience. In the bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom window on most computers, you will notice an audio settings menu. If you click on the up arrow, then you can choose audio settings, and a new window will open. Here you can select different speakers to ensure that you can hear, and you can also, if you have multiple speakers installed, and then you can also choose the test speaker button to make sure that you can hear the output. You can also do the same thing for your microphone. If you have multiple microphones, you can make sure that the proper one is selected and choose test mic. This is an important option if you are called upon to speak, so please make sure that your mic is tested and working properly. If you're using an iPad or other type of tablet, it's possible that you'll have to tap the screen and select your audio settings from the top menu. When using tablets or smart devices, you will need to download the Zoom app from the App Store or Play Store. So let's talk about the Q&A button. The Q&A button is a place where you can ask a question or post a comment that can be answered by PMed staff. This area is not meant as a platform to be recognized to speak or for posting comments speaking for or against a resolution. It should be used for more benign questions or comments such as this. Is there a difference between resolution voting and election voting? And once I submitted this question, a PMed employee would answer back, yes, there is a difference between election voting. Election voting will take place after the recess using Election Buddy, and resolution voting takes place live through the Zoom platform. And so I would get that answer that way. You could also just type in additional questions in the text question and answer box here. Now, if for some reason there is an issue with someone's microphone and the speaker cannot hear the delegate when recognized, this would be an acceptable place to pose the question, but only because you have been recognized by the speaker. So let's now talk about the raise hand and speak option. In order to be recognized to speak during the House of Delegates, you must click the raise hand button towards the bottom, which will place you in a queue with others in the order in which your hand was raised. By clicking this button here, you'll notice that it turns blue and it also changes to lower hand. When recognized by the speaker to speak, the Zoom moderator will allow you to speak. A pop-up window will come up on your screen that says the host would like you to unmute. Click the unmute button, and then you will be able to speak for the allotted time in which the speaker is allowed. Once finished, the moderator will then remove your privilege to speak and will lower your hand. And lastly, delegates will have the opportunity to vote on resolutions and other House business. When the speaker announces that a vote is necessary, The item being voted on will be broadcast to all delegate screens. Delegates can then make their selections. The screen will pop up. The delegate makes the selection, chooses the Submit button, and it is then submitted to the overall vote. Once the voting has ended, the moderator will then share the results, and all will be able to see the results of that vote. This concludes our Zoom webinar training. If at any time you experience technical difficulty, there will be an email address and a phone number to call to receive technical support during the meeting. This will be posted on the House of Delegates virtual platform page. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we hope that it helps you to feel more prepared as you attend our virtual House of Delegates meeting this October.
Well, thank you. And again, that was just a very basic review of the functions. A little further clarification that the raise hand button, at least during the live HOD, often will be almost a last resort. The speakers will recognize raised hands, but it will stop proceedings. The Q&A button is most appropriate, a little bit more enhanced than what was described in that video. That will be your mechanism for making motions. If you chose to extract an item, if you wanted to refer an item, you would use the Q&A function, and you would also accompany that with an explanation. That explanation helps guide the processing of the resolution for the speakers going forward there. Another option that will be at the live session, which you don't have tonight, is actually just a technical helpline or a technical help function. So if you're having technical difficulties, there'll be both Zoom platform. Again, we're using something called CE21, which is a build out of Zoom. Technicians available, as well as our own IT staff for that. Hopefully, again, all the bugs have been worked out through your training and your testing in advance for that. But that technical questions should go through there. Q&A function is the appropriate place to make motions, and raising a hand is kind of your last resort if something really needs to be answered in a burning fashion. Tonight, we will also be monitoring the Q&A function and answering your questions as we go along. So, Ellen, if you could share your screen. As you know, in May, the Board of Trustees, because of the COVID situation, assessed that we could not meet live in Hershey this year. However, they did ask the speakers to try to come up with a remote format for this meeting. We lost your screen there, Ellen. There, next slide. So for this remote meeting, we have the capability, at least numbers-wise, for over 300 delegates. We don't have that much yet. If there are people that still have not registered, time is running out. This training, including this platform, is going to be necessary because it is a different format in order for things to go smoothly on that Saturday, the 24th, for the House of Delegates. Next slide. Some major differences of the 2020 House: there is no wordsmithing. There's no debate on the floor. In fact, there is no floor at all. Resolutions and bylaws amendments are voted on through this platform that we're using here. The requested focus for this year was urgent 2020 issues affecting your patients and your practices, where PA Med needed to act this in an expeditious fashion. Voting will be accomplished the same way it's been done in prior years via Election Buddy. This is an app that you may remember gets pushed to your phone or to your device of choice. The only difference this year is we did it while we were all together in Hershey. It's the same platform, we'll just be doing it remotely this year. Next slide. The resolution process was somewhat similar in the beginning there. The resolutions began to be accepted in February before we knew about COVID. They were put in through the portal as usual. These resolutions were then collated and posted in early September, and virtual testimony opened at that time. Resolutions closed the testimony closed on October 7th, and your reference committees are presently deliberating all of that testimony and coming up with their report where they'll have recommendations to the House in the form of a consent calendar, which you are familiar with from prior years. For the training exercises tonight, you should have received an email attachment with a pretend consent calendar, and we'll actually be using that tonight to go through a sample set of exercises to show how things will work. This will help both the speakers as well as you become familiar with it. On October 20, actually on the 19th, those reference committee reports will be posted, so you will have those several days in advance to review. And as we open on the 24th, the delegates will be invited to make extractions from the reference calendar, accompanied by the reason for extraction. And basically the extraction is your voice or your ability to say that you don't think the reference committee got it right, that after their testimony, whatever recommendation they made, and that could be to refer, to adopt, or to not adopt, or they may have amended the language, you may say, it's your opportunity to say, you know what, I feel strongly that they did not get it right, it needs to be extracted, and we need to determine a different disposition for it. Again, there will be no debate on these extractions, but you will have the choice then with the assembly to guide the disposition to referral, adoption, or not adoption. Complex issues which require robust debate and further discussion or more research are appropriately set for referral. And anything that is referred will be studied and reported back to the 2021 House of Delegates unless otherwise designated. Next slide. Again, the options that the reference committee will present to you are adopt, not adopt, refer, substitute their resolution, they would make an amendment based on the testimony they heard, or possibly reaffirm. And that's really more rare, but if there's an existing policy where a resolution echoes that, they may suggest reaffirmation of that. Next slide. Today, you'll see these items before you, these actions and the pretend reference committee, pretend consent calendar, and we'll go through those a little bit later. Next slide. So if you wanted to extract something, when the reference committee chair presents the calendar, you would submit in the Q&A button a motion for extraction, and you'd attach to that some rationale or explanation. Again, that will help the subsequent disposition of that. Next slide. Once it is extracted, then the House will have the options to refer it, either for study or decision, to adopt it, or not adopt it. And that could be the reference committee suggestion or the original resolution language. Table is another rare option that you have, which is always in order. It's higher order than referral. And that would be utilized typically to take something completely out of consideration, something that you don't want to vote on. Sometimes it's issues that are divisive. Sometimes there are issues that more controversial, and the House or the body decides that they do not want to deal with that at all. A 2/3 vote is required for tabling. Next slide. To refer an extracted item, you must make this motion. Again, you would use the Q&A button, and you would put an accompanying explanation for that. Again, that would help us guide the course of it after the motion for refer. Next slide. If you want to adopt or not adopt an item, meaning that you want to act on it this year and you don't want it referred, you need to defeat referral before you can get to that. Again, a referral is a higher order motion that must be defeated in order to deal with the reference committee recommendation or the original resolution. Next slide. And so let's go now to the pretend consent calendar. Okay, so this was a make-believe reference committee. Nope, almost. I'm going to share that, just the consent calendar there. And for the sake of tonight's exercise, Andrew Harvin, who is one of our legal counsel at PA Med, is going to serve as reference committee chair. And if we could, again, share the screen that shows the pretend consent calendar.
Yes, sorry, I'm just having a little bit of trouble getting it to open up. It'll just give me just one moment and it will appear hopefully on your screen.
Okay, and you want to maybe
Yep,
maximize it, or at least
you
so we'll
bet.
be able to see all 5 resolutions, or at
Let's
least 5
hopefully-
items at the same time. And at this point in the House of Delegates on October 24th, we'll have some initial opening ceremony items, and we will invite the reference committee chair to the podium. And in this case, Dr. Unicorn will come up there, and when he's ready, he will adjust the chair with the speaker.
Mr. Speaker, your reference committee recommends the following consent calendar for the Make-Believe Reference Committee.
And I would then offer to you, and again, this is live and interactive, so you as now delegates/participants tonight would make your decisions on which items you would like to extract. So you have your email attachment handout with the reference committee report. If you haven't read it, that's okay, because this is just make-believe. And this is the appropriate time now where you would suggest which items you would like extracted, if any. If you thought the reference committee got everything completely right, you would not extract anything because you think that their recommendations are appropriate. If you thought their recommendations were less than that, and there'd be some strategy to that too. If the reference committee got it mostly right, you need to keep in mind that if you extract it, it could be defeated altogether and you could lose it. So, you know, think about it, and this may be something that you discuss in your caucuses too in advance of the House of Delegates. So it's appropriate at this time using the Q&A button to indicate which extractions, and usually we make these extractions by item. It's not usually by resolution. We can sometimes cross-check that, but over here you see items 1 through 5, and if appropriate, you would say, I would like to extract item blank because I believe it should be referred, I believe it needed more study, I believe it should be adopted, and the reference committee recommended non-adoption. So we're look for those motions, and then we would collate all of them. And I see item 5 is been extracted. There is another one for item 5. And we recognize the timing is a little bit different than in the live House of Delegates, so we probably will have some pauses. They may seem a little bit awkward, but we'd want to make sure that everything is appropriate. Item 3, there was also a motion to extract without an accompanying explanation. The speakers would appreciate some guidance as to reasoning or rationale. The item will still be extracted, but if the extractor could give some guidance as to why that item should be extracted, it would be appreciated. So items 5 and 3 are thus far extracted. Are there any additional extractions? Seeing none, you have the remainder of the reference committee report before you for adoption, and then this would be put up for a vote. So if you would like to adopt the reference committee remainder of the consent calendar, you would vote yay. If you do not wish to adopt that, you would vote nay. And now is your time to adopt the remainder of the consent calendar aside from items 5 and 3, which have been extracted. Now I'm just going to speak out loud just for the other panelists. I cannot see the polling or the voting going on right now, so someone will have to share that with me so that I can indicate when that's done. Typically, this is about 25 to 30 seconds for voting. And again, I have to see this poll to be able to report it, which I do not see yet. Okay, so we see you have adopted the remainder of the consent calendar by a margin of 84% to 16%, being 27 votes to 5 votes. So the remainder of the consent calendar is adopted. And now we go to the extracted items. We typically take them in numerical order. So items 3 and 5 were extracted. And we'll start with item 3. And again, I would go to the reference committee chair. I'd say Dr. Unicorn, item 3.
Mr. Speaker, the Make Believe Reference Committee recommends that item 3 be referred to the Board of Trustees for decision. May the Reference Committee speak to this?
Please.
Mr. Speaker, your Reference Committee recommends that Resolution 277 be referred to the Board of Trustees for decision. Resolution 573 calls on PA Med to paint the lobby of the new headquarters blue and all office space white. The original Resolution 573 resolved proposed the new PA Med headquarters lobby shall be painted blue and all office space painted white. Your Reference Committee received limited mixed testimony on this issue. Some favored painting the entire interior space white for flexibility and savings and purchasing only a single color. The author referenced psychological studies supporting blue as a common color while being received into the lobby. Still others felt that the lobby should be painted in a bold color to emphasize the powerful advocacy that PA Med wields in Harrisburg. Ultimately, your Reference Committee recognized that further study is needed and that additional unknown painting costs could significantly add to the building budget. And because the building is scheduled for occupancy by January 2021, your Reference Committee recommends that the board decide the color choices based on the upcoming research so that the new building and interior improvements can be completed on schedule.
Well, thank you. You have before you the recommendation of the Reference Committee for referral for decision. And this will be the starting point for our actions as a House of Delegates. So this will be your first voting item because it is recommended for referral. That is a higher order than the adoption of the amendment or the original, and we'll start with that item. So it is referred for decision, and that should be put out as a poll now for you. So if you believe that the Reference Committee recommendation that, and again, there's a little bit of a typo here. It should be Resolution 573, not 277. And I apologize for that in our Make Believe Reference Committee. But if you believe that you agree with the Reference Committee recommendation for referral for decision, you would vote yay. And if you disagreed, you would vote no against that. Now, again, I cannot see the polling question and the poll itself. Hopefully the poll should reflect that specific question. The referral for decision of the Reference Committee recommendation. And again, talking out loud to the panel, is there any way that I can see this poll as it's going on so I know what's going on and I don't have to fly blind here? Okay, I see it now. Thank you. And I believe the voting is open now. And again, we're going to give it approximately 25 to 30 seconds. Now that's another thing, at least the speakers are not able to see at this time, is the actual voting, which would probably be good. And I believe voting is closed now. And the House has agreed with the reference committee and referred for decision Resolution 573 by 64% to 36%, or 21 to 12 votes agreeing with the reference committee. So that would dispose of this item. So item number 3 now is the House has decided to actually refer it. And now we would move on to the next extracted item, which is item 5. And Dr. Unicorn, item 5.
Dr. Pagan,
Yes.
there was a motion to table.
Oh, now when did that come in?
That was in the Q&A when it was extracted to table this item.
Okay. So with the extraction, I think that was the suggested outcome. However, the actual table motion never came in, right? We started with the motion for referral there, and
Right. So
it didn't. So
came in the explanation. So
came into the explanation, and the speakers probably should have reminded that extractor that if table was intended, that would be appropriate time to motion for table in the Q&A. And the speakers beg your forgiveness for that. But in this make-believe reference committee, we get do-overs, and we can pretend we're doing that all over again. So let's pretend there. So you saw how a referral would work, and everybody, thank you for your cooperation. So now let's pretend the same item is extracted. So let's go back to item 3, which is resolution 573. And again, apologies for the typo of 277 in that. So now, if your speaker was a little bit more helpful, he would say, you have before you the reference committee recommendation for referral for decision to the Board of Trustees. Referral is a high order motion. Higher than this is table. If someone would choose to table this motion, that motion is in order at this time. And I would pause, and then we would look for the Q&A section, and we'd look for a motion to table.
Hi, Dr. Pagan, I'm sorry to interrupt. I confused you. The motion to table was for item 5, and that's why I didn't mention it until we got to it. But
okay.
I think it's fine. It's a good example of if there was
okay, well, let's go to 5 then. It's a two-man job here, and you see how Dr. Hertzberg is helping me out. So actually, so we were right on speed there. So 607 there. So the reference committee. So we're very good. So we're not up to that yet. So we're back to the reference committee chair presenting.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, the Make Believe Reference Committee recommends that PA Med Policy NCC 1701 be reaffirmed in lieu of item 5 of Resolution 607.
Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, sir. The reference Resolution 607 requests that PA Med introduce an AMA resolution requiring that at least one physician be present during all intergalactic travel that is anticipated to last more than 60 days. The original 607 resolved proposed our PA Med delegation introduce a resolution at the next AMA meeting that requires at least one physician be present during all intergalactic trips lasting over 60 days. Your reference committee heard extremely lengthy testimony of this item, which was overwhelmingly supportive. PA Med Policy NCC 1701 states, in practice in medicine, all PA physicians should comply with Starfleet regulations. Given our existing PA Med policy adheres to all Starfleet regulations, including physician attendance on long intergalactic trips, your reference committee feels that the proposed policy is redundant. Instead, the committee recommends reaffirmation of PA Med Policy NCC 1701. Your reference committee recommends the PA Med Policy NCC 1701 be reaffirmed in lieu of Resolution 607.
So you have before you the recommendation of the reference committee for Resolution 601, being reaffirmation of our existing policy NCC 1701. It is now appropriate, if there are any other motions for this. Otherwise, reaffirmation will be the motion on the table. So there is a motion to table this item. Motion for table is the higher order and requires no debate and no discussion. So you have before you the motion to table Resolution 607 and that discussion. This requires a 2/3 vote. If it is tabled, the item is dispensed with and we're done with our extractions. If the item is not tabled, then we would go through starting with the recommendation from the reference committee. So you have before you the question of tabling of Resolution 607. All in favor, say yes. All opposed, vote no. I'll give that about 25 to 30 seconds. Item 4, reaffirmation is recommended. Item 4.
Dr. Pagan?
Yes.
There was a technical glitch and your sound was out for about 20 seconds there. So I think we might've missed a few things.
Okay, let me just repeat. You have before you the recommendation of the reference committee that PA Med Policy 1701 be reaffirmed in light of, in lieu of Resolution 607. That will be the issue before you for decision, unless there is another
Wait, Dr. Pagan,
recommendation, and referral is something that could be in order if offered.
Dr. Pagan, the point at which you went out was right before you announced the table result. So,
oh dear,
yeah,
that's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
So it was not tabled. I'm sorry about that. We'll repeat. The item was not tabled. There was a vote of 55% to table, 45% not to table, 21 to 17. As you know, tabling requires a 2/3 majority. This did not meet the threshold for 2/3 majority. The item is not tabled, and you now have before you the recommendation of the reference committee that PA Med Policy NCC 1701 be reaffirmed in lieu of Resolution 607. Other options that the delegates have is for referral. If you think this item needs more study, and to be brought back for more robust discussion during a live session next year, that would be appropriate. Seeing no further motions, you have before you the recommendation of Reference Committee B.
Dr. Pagan?
Yes.
We just had a late breaking motion to refer to the board for study.
Okay. That is in order, and that is higher a higher order motion. So the question before you is now on referral for study of resolution 607 to the board. They would bring that back in our next meeting with a further report and for discussion and decision by the House of Delegates. A great question. It was, I saw, do motions need to be seconded? And technically, yes, they do. We did see 2 motions for referral, so I took the second one as a second for that. But you're absolutely right. Motions for tabling and for referral should be seconded. So you have before you the recommendation of the Reference Committee, Resolution 607, to refer that this item should be referred to the board for further study and brought back to the House at the next meeting. All in favor of referral for study signify by voting yes. All opposed for referral to study signify by voting no. I think the voting is concluded. And yes, the item is referred by a vote of 59% to 41%, or 17 to 2 votes. So item 607 is referred. So that concludes at least this sample reference committee report, 2 extractions, and the machinations that went for disposal there. If we want, we can run through another exercise, or we can handle some additional Q&A just on the platform and the exercise right here. So we'll just put out another poll. Would you like to do another extraction exercise? And Chris, I know I caught you off guard by we'll put that up for a poll if we want to go through just one other extraction. So if you'd like to do another one, just tell me yes. If you don't, you're tired of this, you could tell me no, and there's no offense taken. I did see a question in the QA, which items parliamentary-wise need a supermajority vote or a 2/3 vote? Typically, those are ones that actually can limit the voice of the membership body. So tabling would stop discussion and to stop a vote and stop the issue from proceeding further. So a 2/3 vote would be appropriate for that. As you know, in our bylaws, anything that has to do with our endowment requires an even higher majority, with 75%, and that was meant to be protective of the endowment. So usually things that require something above, something that encroaches on the ability of the voice of the House or of the voting members, or something that is of a very sensitive nature that is protected, sometimes need higher order. All other things are usually just simple majority or 50% there. The results of the poll was you did not want to have another extraction exercise, 69% to 31%, or 22 to 10 votes. So we will not do another extraction. Chris, if you could get ready and push out the election buddy results. So those that have registered for tonight, you'll also now get a sample of the election and the voting ballot that is pushed out to your smartphone or item of choice as you indicated in the registration. And we'll also now open it up just more informally to Q&A going on. And Dr. Hertzberg, anything else came in?
I think, let me just do one more check. I think, so yes, there was the question of, gosh, we'd like to see the number of votes, not the percentages.
Yes, and the speakers wholeheartedly agree with you and are wholeheartedly somewhat frustrated by the inability to display the actual votes, and which is why I announced the vote count with each of the percentages, and it's what we will do at the actual live House of Delegates too. So you may be able to see the percentages and the actual polls result. I will accompany that with the actual numbers of votes cast in that. For whatever reason, the IT coding gods do not let us do that simultaneously, and we're forced to announcing that verbally. But that is a common question that we get in these training sessions, and we've been working behind the scenes to do that. Regarding the election buddy, I think it should be in the next 5 minutes or so. You should get that. And so you're aware, PA Med technical staff will be available even after this webinar concludes tonight to be able to answer questions about or problems with the election buddy. This has worked fairly smoothly and well in our last several House of Delegates. We do not anticipate a problem with this, but again, we'll be available for those questions after that. Some of the questions of the motions there and the extractions. You are advised that if you want something extracted to do that, there may be some redundancies, although extracted items may be extracted for different reasons. So you shouldn't depend or expect your other delegates to make an extraction where you think that one is appropriate. So there's no such thing as having too many people extract the same item. So if there's two extractions or 20 extractions of the same item, that item is still extracted. The rationale behind that may be duplicating, or it may actually give the speakers a little bit more guidance as to how to handle the motion when it does come up. Was a question about caucuses, and no, this House of Delegates, when we open up on Saturday, this is the equivalent of opening up on Sunday morning. So the live testimony has already been taken, as you know. The reference committees are in the presence of, or presently, collating, considering, and forming reports based on that testimony. That's all the things that would occur on a Saturday. Caucuses can take place the week of, before the House on the 24th. So after the 19th, those reference committee reports will be available. If caucuses want to meet independently on their own between the 19th and the 23rd, 23rd being Friday, the day before the House of Delegates, you're certainly welcome to do that, but there's no formal structure of caucusing this time. This is the equivalent of Sunday where the voting takes place. Ellen, if you could share your screen, we'll go down to the bottom of that slide deck and we'll just go over again. I'm glad you asked that question because we'll just review again the dates and times there. So we'll start with slide number 34, as if you read my mind, which you did. So here you can see the October 16th deadline. As there is no floor, and to be fair to the delegates as well as to the candidates, anybody considering running for a position who is not otherwise in the official call has until the 16th to submit the nomination, and the 19th for all accompanying documentation. So that's as an endorsement letter, if you have a speech that you'd like posted, if you have a written statement, things like that. So the 16th, you'll need to have your deadline in for that. That is also the time for this training to be completed there. That's coming right up on us. That's this Friday at 5 p.m. there. So I appreciate you being on this webinar and receiving that training. If you do feel you need additional training even after this webinar, please reach out. PA Med staff is available for that as well. You are encouraged again to test your PC or your a laptop. We are suggesting that you use a PC or a laptop for this so you can see all of the functions. Although a smartphone or a tablet may work, and have worked for some Zoom things. We have found difficulties with delegates being able to see all of the functions, including the QA and other things. So we are recommending using a PC or a laptop and you being connected to a uninterrupted high-speed internet for the duration. Next slide. So you can see on the 24th, you can hook in and connect at 8 a.m. We will run through a couple of sample polls just to make sure that everything is working properly and people are able to vote. At 9 a.m., we're going to open the House promptly. We're going to go through the items, including the inauguration, the ceremonial functions, some speeches. We're going to go through the extractions, as you saw. Then we'll go through each extracted item. We'll go through the consent calendars first, look for extractions. Then we'll go through the individual extracted items. And then we're targeting a approximate recess at around noon. Now, of course, this depends on the number of extractions and and how long it takes to get through the items of business. As we recess, the election buddy polls will open. They will remain open for approximately 2 hours for the first run. Again, if there's any problems, please reach out during those 2 hours. After 2 hours, the votes will be tabulated. If there are any runoffs, and it is quite possible that there are at least one runoff round, there will be another election round later on. It will not stay open for the full 2 hours. We think by then the bugs will be out of it. We'll announce the opening time and the closing time. And depending on floor nominations, it is possible that there's even further runoffs after that. We are asking the delegates to at least bookmark Sunday at 9 a.m. for a possible concluding session or final runoff. The speakers are working diligently, though, to complete all business on the afternoon or evening of Saturday. Again, that afternoon, you do not have to be tied to the PC or laptop. You can be on your smartphone, but please just be available and attentive to the election buddy votes as they come out. By this time, you should have actually received a push out for the election buddy. And if you did not, please let us know. Chris, I'm going to just let you fill in any gaps also from an IT standpoint tonight. Anything I failed to highlight or emphasize?
No, the only thing I wanted to do is review that interface just as the last, you know.
You mean the election buddy interface?
No, the actual CE21 interface. But that's the only thing. You've touched on everything else, so.
Okay, and I'll pause here too. If there are any questions, and you could submit that as a Q&A, or if you want to, you can even raise your hand if there's something that I did not answer or address for you tonight. And the speakers sincerely appreciate your time tonight out of your schedule to do this. This helps us and hopefully helps you too. Again, this is our third session. Each session we're learning a little bit and we're getting this better there. Staff has been incredible doing this, putting together a remote House of Delegates, putting together a live House of Delegates, and you can imagine with the 3 days and everything that goes into that is a Herculean task in and of itself. Putting together the remote HOD is reinventing the wheel, and there is a lot going on there. We've been forced to reconsider some things. This format did not come easy. It's very, very hard to come to this, but this was the only workable format in the remote session to do this. We did look at other states and other national societies to see how they were coping with COVID and how they were doing it. This is a fairly robust exercise compared to some there. And again, we appreciate your patience in doing it. The speakers also relied on a panel which has been very helpful in guiding us in thinking through a lot of these things. The Rules Committee has been working diligently for several weeks. The Bylaws Committee works almost year-round for this, and as you know, came up with some ideas and some challenges based on the COVID pandemic that were not foreseen by our regular, our existing bylaws, and they have some recommendations for you as well. Yes, this is recorded. That was one of the questions there. This recording is doing that. And Ellen, you can chime in, but as you register for the House of Delegates, you'll be able to attest to completion of your training at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I would tell you, for those who were asking where the recordings are housed, I love to say it, I'm getting pretty good at it without tripping over my letters. It's www.pamedsoc.org/HOD. So, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to take those as well regarding that, but you'll find that and so much more on the HOD page of our website.
It's true. You can see now obviously the speakers have been working at this for several months. You can see, you know, an archive of the speakers' letters that have come out throughout the spring, summer, and fall. You can see the references and the guidance there on the PA Med HOD website, and the links to these recordings and other resources too. There's a especially helpful an FAQ section. So frequently asked questions has to be is available there also. And again, with the registration for the HOD, and we should note, this is a little confusing. Just like you registered additionally for tonight's training exercise, you do need to additionally register for the 24th HOD. And it's not your PA Med registration. So to get it on the website, you have a username and a password. You'll be asked to create a username and password for the HOD registration as well. It could be the same. You can make up whatever one you want, but it is a second separate registration. And with that registration, you can do your attestation for your training. Again, because it is a different format, we are requiring everybody to go through some training and to attest to it. There will be no training available during the House of Delegates. So once we start at 9 a.m., we're going all the way through. And again, that's why we need everybody trained and ready to go for that Saturday so we can have a smooth and productive session. Chris, with that, I'll hand it over to you and let you go through the platform a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pagan. So let me just share my screen here. And so I want everyone to see, this is what the platform, when you log into the House of Delegates platform page, will look like. And there's a couple of little updates that will happen over the next day or so, but for the most part, this is all pretty much populated the way it's going to be. You have the different tabs up here, welcome, meeting resources, elections, standing rules, etc., across the top. And when you click on these different tabs, you'll get the different information that you need, that's pertaining to that tab. So one of the things that I want you to see is there's a launch button here and here. We put Lauren put it in as many places as possible so that when you were on any of the tabs, you could pretty much just see that that's where you're going to go to actually launch the meeting. So you can log in here. I think we're going to make this live tomorrow so that you can get in and browse through the virtual platform page, prior to the House of Delegates on the 24th. But to actually actively launch the live session, on the day of, probably at 8 o'clock or 8:30 on the 24th, you'll want to click the launch button. And that will open up the Zoom page for you so that you can get in and see the live session. So these other tabs up here are just for your informational, they'll have technical support, information, election support, customer support, etc. There's different videos along here that you can watch. That's pretty much, just wanted to kind of give you that quick overview of this, but really that is your key. You need to launch that button prior to the House opening. Is there any questions on that that you may have? By all means, submit them into the Q&A. Okay, back to you, Dr. Pagan.
Yes, thank you again so much tonight for everybody behind the scenes that, and I know several in the audience have been working diligently to help prepare for this. I want to thank the engaged delegates. Please get the word out. There's still time to be trained. There's still time to be part of it. The Rules and Credentials Committee will consider all appropriate requests to be entered into this House of Delegates as a delegate. The deadline has technically passed, but if you do complete your training and you do submit a request to the Credentials Committee, they would most likely favorably receive that. But again, we do need to have the list of delegates in advance. We do need to have people trained in advance in order for this to be a smooth session. And again, this is recorded, so you can refer back to it. If you feel you need further training or any technical problems tonight, please reach out to us. Again, you should have received the election buddy and the ability to cast a vote for that. And I see a question again on attestation. When you register for the House of Delegates, you'll be able to attest that you've completed your training, and that should be sufficient. Well, again, thank you for spending your time tonight. Looking forward to an exciting House of Delegates. Again, keep checking the HOD webpage for any other updates or any questions that haven't been answered, and we'll get the answer to you. Have a great night, and see you in 2 Saturdays.